Hello there and welcome to the Play Up podcast with myself, Scott McLachlan, and once again I'm joined by fellow Pompey fans and friends, Reese, Phil and Jamie. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Surprisingly chipper based on Pompey's precarious predicament, but we'll obviously cover that in the next 45 or 50 minutes. Well, we'll see. We'll talk about that. So Pompey have faced three sides inside 6 days following the international break and looked to build on a decent showing against Oxford at Fratton Park. First up, it was a trip to West London to face fellow strugglers QPR, and a Lang penalty in the second half brought home the 3 points and Pompey's first win of the season. QPR took the lead when Schmidt's headed clearance outside his box fell to Dembele, who cheekily lobbed the keeper. Pompey then responded and Potts equalised after good work on the right from Lang, who got behind the defence to cut the ball back for the equaliser. Lang then won the penalty and he scored it to get Pompey the lead for once, and for once they hang on for 3 points. 4 days later, the team headed to South Wales and took on another side struggling at the bottom in Cardiff. Pompey were 2-0 down in just 13 minutes, and it looked like it would go the way of the Stoke game a few weeks ago. But after Schmidt was injured, the third choice keeper, Archer, came on and gave a wonderful display to keep the score to just 2. Pompey only forced Anik into one save in the second half and never really looked like stopping Cardiff from winning. And then shortly, 3 days after that, Pompey hosted a Sheffield Wednesday side on a Friday night who were just a point ahead, and after a solid display in the first half, took the lead from a corner scored by Ogilvie. But they fell apart in the second half as Wednesday applied constant pressure, and the equaliser came from Windass, which was laid on by a good header from Smith. The former Pompey man, Smith, then scored an absolute worldie of a shot from 25 yards to crush Pompey, and right at the death, Lang missed a good chance to equalise. Pompey are now rooted to the bottom of the championship table and don't look like moving up. So there we go. That was a whirlwind tour of the 3 games that we've had in the last 8 or 9 days. I don't know where to start, really. I've looked at this all day, and I just don't know where to start. What do we talk about? I mean, obviously, the QPR game was should have been a confidence trigger, and it should have been building in the team togetherness, and perhaps give us something to hang on to. But of course, when we went to Cardiff, that absolutely evaporated instantly. So. Let's have your thoughts on QPR first. We won the game. Arguably, we didn't deserve to, but we did. So what did you think?
I thought we did deserve to beat QPR because they didn't do enough to win. And I think after the first cock-up from Schmidt, which probably has been his first one, he made 2 worldy saves, a one-on-one that was guaranteed a goal 99 times out of 100, kept us in the game. And as you say, as Phil and Colonel said, Lang scored and made 2, and I think he won. It was tight, but again, I think is it more of actually how bad QPR are with us, and we just about nicked it because I'm surely they're going to be down near the bottom unless something really drastic changes. So from a game perspective, I thought it wasn't a blinding win and we had 20 shots on goal, but I thought we did enough to win purely because we took our chances and they didn't, and we had Callum Lang.
Yeah, Jamie.
I'm going to sum up the whole episode with shit, but we've got Callum Lang.
Should we just end it there then?
Yeah,
we'll just say that's it.
Yeah.
Come back in 2 weeks' time. We'll see if Callum Lang's still the only thing we've got to hang our hopes on. Go on, Phil.
I only saw the highlights, but the report I had back from a friend who said it was 2 terrible teams and one was slightly less terrible than the other.
Yeah.
Which may or may not have been harsh. I don't know.
Well, I did actually get to the game, and to be fair, that was not an unfair summary. To be honest, QPR. I thought we played really well first half. To be honest, and up until their goal, like the first 20 minutes, I thought we looked the most accomplished side of the 2. I say accomplished. Less terrible than the other side, but we were stringing passes together, and Lang created a really good chance for the equaliser. But before that, he'd created a couple of things before Schmidt didn't get his header too far away from his box when he came out. But I thought once we'd equalised, we were again slightly the better side. And yes, you're right, Phil, that Schmidt did pull out a couple of really good saves. The deflected one, which was going in the corner, was a really good reaction save. And but Lang was sharp, got the penalty, and we managed to, for once, hang on. I mean, McIntyre and Paul look League One at best at the moment. I don't know whether Paul will rise to Championship level. McIntyre, I certainly don't think he will, unless he's played in a back three, perhaps on a left of a three. But Paul was the one that we were thinking would step up. I know he's been out for a long time injury, but he does seem really off the pace and seems to get too tight to defenders, and they the ball over the top. In that particular game against QPR, he got caught out a couple of times. So, as you said, the guy ran through and tried to chip Schmidt when he should have just put it through his legs or something. So, I mean, it was good to get a win, but as you say, it wasn't convincing at all.
With McIntyre, believe it or not, I think he has had more appearances in the Championship than any other player that we own.
Yeah.
So whether he's a Championship player is kind of a moot point because he's played there before. But in the team that he's playing in at the moment, he's not flourishing. And I would like to sort of stick up for Schmidt a bit. And I think with that goal, and I think the problem Schmidt had, and it's the problem I think that's existing throughout the team, is that there's no leadership on the pitch at all. There's no one prepared to take control of anything, and you almost got the sense that he just thought someone's got to do something about this, otherwise we're buggered. And he made a rash decision. On another day, the header might have gone a bit further. They may have just blasted it over the bar rather than being a bit more composed. But I think he almost felt he had to clear up everyone else's mess.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think the leadership thing is a real problem, and it's been a theme through the last three games that I don't know what our senior, or what they refer to as the leadership group. I don't know who on the pitch is supposed to be part of that. I know initially it was Pack obviously is the captain, Norris was the vice captain. You have to say that Regan Poole, Conor Ogilvie are the other sort of more experienced players, but none of them take control on the pitch. None of them. You don't see them cajoling players, trying to help them through the game. It's been sort of quite obvious in the last few games that sort of leadership and character is missing, and that's why people end up making mistakes like that, because they feel they've got to take matters into their own hand.
I think Pat, as you say, he's the one who probably has been the most vocal. Ironically, Archer was actually, when he came on against Cardiff, he was cajoling the kind of the defence and everything, is actually trying to give him a bit of encouragement, even though obviously we were kind of 2-0 down. But yeah, you're right. I mean, when we signed McIntyre, Paul Dollymore, who lives up in Reading, he got one of his mates kind of got a bit of feedback on him, and he said he's a Championship player. He's absolutely, without a doubt, a Championship player. And Reading got rid of him because he was on such high wages, and they're financially screwed. So I think there's got to be more to come from him, and he has been out for a long time. And similarly with Paul, I mean, he looks like a shadow of his former self, but I don't know whether that's because he's been out for so long, or because the jump from the top of League One to the Championship is just much, much bigger than what it was when we were there 10, 12 years ago. But they, at the moment, you've got to say pretty much every player, bar one or two, is playing really badly. Their confidence must be shot to pieces, and I think that's what we're seeing in the performances. So it'll be interesting when we talk about whether they're going to get any better or not later on, what the feeling is. And yeah, I totally agree with Phil on the leaders bit. You look at people like Tim Sherwood back in the day, when remember, every time he was in midfield, he always wanted the ball no matter what, and he just led the way, and we just don't seem to have those players at the moment. I don't know whether kind of Shaughnessy, whether he'll be, I can't remember being really, really vocal, but surely he's got to be somebody we are missing hugely at the back.
I was going to say, so here's a question then: was Shaughnessy the strong one in the partnership all along, and everyone just assumed it was Paul, and now?
Well, that's an interesting word you use, though, Jamie. Partnerships. So McIntyre obviously played at the Championship level and was deemed to be quite good. Who was he playing with? So who was his partner? Because you don't defend individually, do you? You defend as a unit. You defend as a back four or a back five or a midfield or whatever. It's not just one person all the time. So are we looking at Poole and McIntyre as really not a good pairing? They're not able to play together. That's why it's not working. And individually, they then look really poor. And was Poole, as you said, Jamie, was Poole and Shaughnessy the perfect partnership between the two of them because they could communicate and understood each other's movement patterns? Do you think that would be right, Jamie?
Or again, are both just both the current pair, just McIntyre and Poole, just a bit rusty still because they were out for so long. There's that in the mix as well. Are we being too harsh on them? Have they been thrown back in too early? Yeah, there's all the questions that I do not have answers for.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we ain't got a choice, have we? That's been part of the problem. I mean,
No.
you've got to say, you could argue our preferred centre-back pairing are both out and have been all season, but I don't think you can blame injuries for where we are. But you've got to say they've got to have had an influence on the team position. But yeah, it's amazing how when players go out, sometimes others shine, others, or you just go, oh my God, we're missing so and so much. And Shaughnessy has definitely been the one, defensive wise anyway, it appears to be the one we're missing hugely.
Last season, he wasn't even, when we signed him, my understanding was he wasn't being signed as the first choice centre back. He was being signed as an understudy, I think possibly to Poole, but he obviously took his chance playing on the left hand side of the two at the time, and he sort of grabbed it and made that position his own. So you're right. They don't. You're right, Reece and Scott. They don't look like two players who are comfortable playing alongside each other. And I think that. I mean, I know we'll get onto the we'll get onto the Sheffield Wednesday game later, but the first goal, that was a classic thing. Neither of them, they just looked at each other. Neither of them knew who was supposed to be putting the man up. They weren't defending in a line. There was no communication. He scored, and they both just looked at each other as if to say, whose fault's that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Well, we will get on to Sheffield Wednesday quite soon. I don't think there's much point talking about Cardiff really because it was just a catalogue of problems and mistakes, and the positive was that, I mean, it's really ironic, isn't it? Archer, who we were saying, why has he been signed and what's he doing? What's his role at the club? Well, his role clearly was to come on and be an absolute boss against Cardiff.
Yeah, and don't forget he hadn't played a league game since 2021, and to come in and put in a performance like that, I mean, hats off to him.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I mean, his kicking is very, very suspect, but whenever he was required to use his hands in the goal, he was terrific. And as you say, Jamie, he seemed to be organising better. I mean, I don't know how good Schmidt's English is, but perhaps that's another thing that might be causing a problem is communication issues between keeper and centre backs. Is he talking to them as they're moving about the pitch, push up, push back, all that sort of stuff that we imagine is going on at professional level. Is that a possible problem with Schmidt? Who knows?
I think Will Norris's confidence has probably has probably taken a well-needed injection, and I, for one, certainly won't be disappointed to see him either start or back on the bench again.
No, and I think you need to go back to go forward sometimes. Sorry, Reece, I'll bring you in a second. I think you need to go back to go forward with Norris. I think Norris, the Stoke thing was such a shock. I think he would have been decimated by that game. And whether he was injured or not, and that's what the club are saying, I think Mousinho did the right thing by taking him out, right out of the firing line for at least a couple of games. But I think you're right, Jamie. I think he wouldn't look at the other two keepers and go, well, that's my position. I'm not going to get that back. He would say, actually, I am the number one. I am the best keeper at this club.
He's done well. He is a good goalkeeper. I was quite surprised that we made a big deal about signing Schmidt, especially after we'd signed Archer. I then thought, well, he's come in because he's better. You don't necessarily, or don't usually sign two understudy goalkeepers. but I've always rated Will Norris. When Paul got injured last season, his confidence on distribution took a knock around that time, and I don't necessarily think it was his fault, but we basically let in a goal because he distributed it badly, and ever since then we stopped what I considered us playing like Brazil at the back. We were taking risks, but we were bossing it and we were passing it around. And ever since the day that Paul got injured and Norris was kind of at fault for a goal, we've stopped doing that at the back, and now we're hoofing it a lot more. But I thought Norris was doing fantastic at that up to that point, and I do think he's a good goalkeeper. And I heard a rumour that he was going in January, and I really hope that rumour is false and that he's given another chance, especially from what I've seen from the two new keepers.
I think with Schmidt, not only did we bring in a keeper, we actually paid money for him, which is quite a novelty in our world. So they've clearly got. I think that speaks volumes. The fact that we paid a fee for him.
Yeah,
I think that he's possibly being earmarked as the number one.
But his distribution with feet clearly is a lot less. He's got a lot less ability than Norris, so that doesn't make sense to me. He might be a better shot stopper, but I thought Mousinho wanted to play out from the back and use him as a sweeper keeper, which is what Norris does. Norris, sometimes comes right to the edge of his box or even just outside of his box to make that triangle with the centre back to try and shift the ball left to right to left. But Schmidt can't do that. I haven't seen any evidence that he has any confidence with the ball at his feet. So I don't know. I don't understand. He can kick it really, really far in a straight line. But obviously you need to nuance that a bit.
But we've kind of changed the way our build up has changed this season, and in sort of keeping with the sort of trend that a lot of other teams have employed, which is rather than getting the keeper to bring the ball out and the keeper to make that pass, we're playing it across the back four and getting one of the four. I mean, admittedly, it just every time goes to Ogilvie and he thumps it up the line. But we're using a defender for the distribution rather than the keeper in that respect.
Yeah,
I think also the thing that's different this year is we are not getting as much time at the back because the players are fitter, stronger, more energetic, and more in your face at the back. And I just don't think we can play that way like we did last year. But I was a big fan of Norris as of last year. I thought he was very close to player of the season. I think he was a steady Eddie. But I think after Stoke, it's right to make a change. It sounds like he's taking it really badly, and therefore Mousinho's managing him as he should be. But I've been quite impressed with Archer and Schmidt. But like Phil, I think you've got to see Schmidt as a long-term option, but he's new. Do you need bedding in? New centre backs, defence is always changing, etc., etc. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. So,
well, let's go on to Sheffield Wednesday game then. So, if I remember rightly, so Smith played for us under Jacket, didn't he?
Yes.
And he was shit, wasn't he? If I remember rightly.
No, he was injured all the time.
Was he injured all the time?
He was a great player, but he was injured.
Okay, fair enough.
I thought he was great. I thought he was a really good player. Although when he came on, he played really well, but he rarely ever came on and was injured all the time.
He did.
I've got a really dull story about him.
No, we love dull stories. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a really dull story. I once met Michael Smith and Curtis Main in the lift at Ikea in Southampton.
Wow.
That's a big lift as well.
It is a big lift. And I said to them, "What are you doing in here?" And they went, don't tell anyone. But the weirdest thing about the story is they were sharing a trolley and it was predominantly full of coat hangers.
Wow, there we go.
I mean, you can read into that as you will, but
and I will.
Yeah.
They obviously were sharing a house with a massive wardrobe. I mean, what else is there? What else is there to go for? But no, I'm probably being a bit unfair on Michael Smith. I'm just really annoyed he put one in the top corner from 25 yards. Which
what a goal!
Well, yes, exactly, what a goal. But no one saw that. I mean, his assist for the equaliser. Now that's what I would expect him to do. But to curl one in on the run as well into the top corner, like he was Cristiano Ronaldo, was just ridiculous. So I suppose the big talking point is Pack being dropped. And he was dropped. He wasn't rested like some of the stories were. He cleared.
The commentator was brilliant, wasn't he? I don't know who's on commentary, and they said Marlon Pack being given a well-earned rest.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they obviously bought into whatever pre-match notes were given to them by the club, but he was dropped after some very dodgy performances. So
Dozzell being given a well-earned rest, wasn't it, from Pack? The other way around, the fans are being given a well-earned rest from more of the same.
Exactly. Well, there's only so much headless chicken running you can watch in one season. But so Dozzell and Potts were centre too, and I thought they had a good game. I thought they had a really good game. They they were playing a lot deeper. So I think the whole team was playing a lot deeper in that first half, and making sure that they weren't going to get beat, which is, I think, something that we've all been saying in the last few weeks. Let's just not get beat. Let's keep a clean sheet. So we were doing that, and then obviously we nicked a goal at the end from the corner from Ogilvie. But when they came out in the second half, it just seemed as if they were a completely different team again. I don't know what goes on with the preparation at half time. It just baffles me. We sat off. We didn't defend deep. We just sat off Sheffield Wednesday. Barry Bannon ran the game from there on, and it was just a matter of time when they were going to score. And that's the most worrying thing, is that we seem to have these small pockets of positive performance and play that are then completely undone by either individual errors or the whole team shutting down or the manager making the wrong substitutions. And this is the theme throughout the whole of the season so far, that these, we keep losing these games. Yes, Sheffield Wednesday played well, but we were in the lead and we should have focused on trying to get that over the line, like we did at QPR.
Don't want to gloss over because I'm going to pull out a positive here, because there's not really many positives this evening. But from the goal that we scored, the corner, what a flick on by Omani! I thought it was absolutely superb bit of technique there.
We've actually got a striker who looks like he can head the ball as well, which because he scored his goal against Oxford was a lovely glancing header into the bottom right corner, wasn't it? So
beautiful technique.
Shame we couldn't build on it, really. It's funny, isn't it? Because one thing, just going back to Cardiff, what you got to mention is it's the second game where we just started like all the players minds are on the moon and just elsewhere, and within 10-15 minutes the game was lost. So I hope that doesn't become a worrying trend where we just, for whatever reason, I can't believe it's not preparation in the dressing room. Is it something else that's going on? But it just seemed to happen in the second half where whether they just thought, right, let's just get hold of the ball, and they just pass it around, and we just couldn't get anywhere near them. And it just looked so easy. It wasn't like we were making it difficult for them. It was just, oh, right, okay, we'll just had enough of that. Well, 1-0 down, better do something about it. And like within 25 minutes, game over, job done. Right, good night, see you later, bye.
Jamie?
So I was just going to make going back to your point about the midfield there. I've been kind of watching Pack, and I think it's pressure. Right, hear me out. He knows he's getting older by the day. Yeah, a lot of people, especially online, have been saying, "Oh, his legs are gone," stuff like that. I don't think the mistakes that he's making are to do with fitness or his legs or anything like that. I think it's nerves. I think he's under so much pressure to be the leader of Portsmouth Football Club. We've come up a division. We aren't playing well, and Pack's mistakes for me are just poor decisions, or they're silly little things. They're not taking that extra second to think about and play the pass. Like in the last game, I think it was the Cardiff game, the last one he played, he made a header, and he just lunged forward and just headed the ball forward, and it went off just in a completely wrong direction. I was just looking, I was just thinking, oh man, why did you do that? Why don't you just stop, get the ball down? He had acres of space as well. He just made the rash decision, and I think it's got to be pressure on the man that's doing it. I don't think he's playing badly. I still think he's got a lot to offer the club. And I just think it's stress, and and we all know that affects all of us. No man's on his game when you're under pressure and you've got 20,000 people, or 200,000 people in Pompey's judging you, and he probably listens to the podcast, maybe not ours, who's going to listen to this shit, but imagine he is listening to others and people are having a moan, and a lot of Portsmouth fans aren't very forgiving. That they can be ruthless, and like some of the things I've read online about our entire squad, it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, that's not gonna help build their confidence and get them to So that's my thought. Is confidence. What do you guys think about that?
I think you've got. I think you make a good point there, and I think the not fitness, but it's not so much the fitness, but it's the ability to move that extra yard of pace or whatever. I think that's definitely a factor, and I think we've all sort of mentioned about, and I think loads of people have mentioned about playing three in the middle. If we played three in the middle, it would take so much pressure off of him. He could sit there and control it from the centre of the pitch. He doesn't have to think about, I need to get there to stop that, and if I do that, then I'm leaving this guy exposed, because he can have two younger people alongside him who can do the donkey work, can do the getting up and getting down, and it will take a lot of pressure off them if we did that. I wonder whether, well, I don't wonder whether, I think it's quite clear that Mousinho is very much wedded to a particular formation, and I think even it'd be interesting to see how we line up for the next game, because I think after the Cardiff debacle, I think it was crying out for a formation change, but I don't think there's enough time between that game and playing a Tuesday night match and then playing a Friday night match to put a new formation or system in place. I think it'd be really telling what we play like at Hull. If we don't change the system, if we go in there with either Pack and Potts or whatever in the middle, I think that's a worry. I think that sets alarm bells for me. I'd like to see us go in there with three across the middle.
I'm not even sure our players have been given time to learn the position, the formation they're trying to play now, let alone a new one. But yeah, I do agree. Something's got to give, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think three in the middle certainly something that I've been calling for weeks now, and purely
they're not listening to you, Scott.
No, they're not.
Yeah, what's going on?
Purely for the reasons that you've outlined, is that it's all about consolidation and pressure, and all it would take is him withdrawing the number 10 and putting a number 8 in. It's not a massive change to the system. You're still playing with your front three. You're just withdrawing one of your attackers into a more defensive role. That's all. So I can't believe it's too much of a tweak. You're not talking about rearranging 4 or 5 positions. You're just talking about one position. That's all you're rejigging in the lineup. So,
and if you stick an extra man in midfield, it's also taking the pressure off, say, a player like Murphy, for example. You're relieving him of some of his defensive responsibilities there, and you can tell him, right, you can play slightly higher up the pitch. You can receive the ball, outside the penalty area rather than at the halfway line, and I think that could make a huge difference.
Yeah, because
and speaking of Murphy, I've got a little update from my friend, the winger hater in the
you did say
in
that
the row in front of me
on the chat. So let's hear it.
Yeah, so the equaliser, obviously, as we've all said, came out in the second half. Didn't look on it at all, and then bang, they scored, and we're all sort of like head in our hands where we are, like the shock, not shock, but almost like, what's happened here? And he pipes up and he goes, "Well, that's Murphy's fault." We were like, "You what, mate? It's clearly Murphy's fault." We were like, "How on earth can you get it being Murphy's fault out of that? Did you not watch it? It was Murphy's fault." He said, "He was our last player to touch the ball. He gave it away." I was thinking, maybe he's seen something I hadn't. So I've recorded the game, went back and watched it afterwards. We sort of lost the ball in midfield. The ball bounced around a bit where other players, not Murphy, could have got it. Someone lobbed it forward to the player that Murphy wasn't close to. The guy knocks it on, could have been intercepted by a couple of ours and scored. Murphy was possibly the least culpable player in our half of the pitch, but no, winger man's not having it. He's
wow.
That's
Still
on Murphy.
What's he got against Murphy then? Because going to joke earlier when I said that we're shit and we've got Callum Lang. I was also thinking, well, Murphy's quite, he's playing quite well as well. What's he got against him then?
He hates wingers. He hates wingers. It started with Owen Dale, which I could kind of understand, but even when
step over King.
But it's just we could have anyone. We could have Vinicius Junior on the wing, and he'd still be blaming him for everything.
Well, I mean, all you've got to do is sit him down and say to him, he's not a winger, he's an inside forward. And
do you think he's going to listen?
But he's not an inside
really,
forward, is he? He's a winger.
He's a winger.
He's on the wrong side to be an inside forward. We need to play him on the. And that was what I said a few weeks ago. I really would like to see him play as an inside forward on that left wing, and and bring what's his name, young squeaky voice back on the.
Lang.
Paddy
Lane.
Lane, yeah.
We ought to start a new feature called Frat and I in the podcast, and we can discuss those players who people seem to think are absolutely terrible, but actually they're playing all right, and it's just that Frat and I.
Well, that's everyone apart from Lang at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
So take your pick.
So, yeah.
So I mean, okay. So let's try and tackle the next. So we've done the games.
Sorry, I've just got one thing that I can't let us gloss over, and I'm going to swear. What the fuck was Paul doing for that Cardiff goal? And he is a Cardiff fan. He threw himself at that ball in the direction of the fucking goal. There was no one near him. He had no reason to be doing that in the world. I'm not saying that he did it on purpose. I might joke about that. But what was going on there? What was going through that silly bastard's mind when he threw himself towards that ball in the 6-yard box? What was going on?
Well, I think you answered the question with your assessment of Pack. It's pressure, isn't it? I think he just panicked, didn't he? Absolutely panicked.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. He obviously didn't get a shout, or he thought someone was on his shoulder, and just like you say, threw himself at it, and it was a good finish in the end.
Oh, he thought he was playing for Cardiff.
He obviously had himself down as first goal scorer, but I would have preferred it in the other end rather than our own goal. So
if you watch it in super slow motion, you can see him do a little fist pump as it goes in.
and then he looks horrified. Yeah. So yeah. Oh no, what have I done? He.
There's the thing about players celebrating scoring against their old teams. It's like players celebrating scoring against their current teams. They shouldn't really do it.
No. So is there any hope for Pompey? You know, if we get our key players back, can we compete at this level? Because at the moment,
I
watched the 4-0 written all over it a couple of days ago, and Tom who does it is for his young age is annoyingly astute, and he basically said that we are pretty much relegated if this is what we're going to do. 8 points out of 32 so far this season. And this trajectory doesn't even get us, 5 wins in the season and above 30 points. So that's pretty terrible. So, what do we do for the rest of the season? This is why I wanted to bring you in, Phil, because obviously, if people do know you, then you're on the PSD board and have been on the Heritage Advisory Board. So you've rubbed shoulders with the owners and the management for 2 or 3 years now. I don't want you to give away any secrets, especially ones you alluded to prior to us starting. But
what are you talking about?
What do you think that they are thinking at the moment? Because clearly, we made light of the late transfer policy and the fact that they'd written off the first few games and were looking to game 7 and onwards to get the points and goals that we were looking at. That hasn't happened. We've brought in a number of players who just clearly don't look ready for first team. In Blair and Kamara and a couple of others, although Amani's doing a decent job of it. He's a young man. He's not going to have that consistency. What are they thinking about it? Because I think you've said before you don't see Mousinho getting the hook. So what do we do? Are we just literally going to tread water this season and watch it pass us by?
That's $1 million question, really, isn't it? I mean, I absolutely don't see. I'd say Mousinho's job's incredibly safe. I think that they've put so much faith in particularly in Rich Hughes. the owners put so much faith in him to sort of deliver this vision. And they've said all along, this was the big appointment, this was the key appointment. And obviously in League One, he absolutely delivered for us. And he also was obviously he was instrumental in the hiring of Mousinho. So if they were to pull the plug on Mousinho, for example, which I absolutely don't think they'll do, and I think they're probably right not to do, they'd be admitting that his appointment was wrong, that the appointment of the key person in their game plan, which was the director of football or sporting director or whatever you call it, was a wrong appointment, and they're absolutely back to square one. So I'm not saying they've gone all in on a particular system, but then this is the first. This is where we are, and I just don't see. I don't see them deviating. I think they'll bunker down. They'll hope that fortunes change. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some movement in the transfer market in January. I don't think they're going to go. I don't think that they will have any intention of sort of trying to buy their way out of the situation. I think they're hoping that the Rich Hughes can pull the sort of magic that he pulled in League One. But what you got to remember is like we were saying about the team, the players not being up to League One, but having no experience in League One. You've got to remember, the manager's never operated managerially at this level. The director of football hasn't operated at this level. So everybody is a novice. And I find it difficult. You can be optimistic about the long term, but we're at a position now, what we're doing at the moment is about a year behind. So if we talk about players not being ready. So you look at the likes of Harvey, as you said, the likes of Harvey, Blair and Kamara. Like we were interested in Blair the summer before last. If we bought him then and he played a year in League One, I think we'd be reaping the benefits this year. If I was the guy, I would not cut your losses, but I'd be sending him out on loan to League One for the rest of the season. Nothing against him. I think he could turn into a brilliant player. I'd like him to learn how to play football somewhere else, learn how to play adult football somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, and then come back to us having got those games under his belt.
Yeah, so I think the supplementary question is, we've got 34 games left of this season. And if it is pretty much a write-off because we've all agreed, even if we don't get our choice 11 back, Bishop might be back for the new year, but it would be a tall ask to win 15, 20, the 15 games we need to stay up with just 30 games to go. So are we saying we have to write this season off? I thought the idea was that we weren't going to be a Rotherham or a Peterborough and bounce between the two divisions, but clearly that's what's happened.
I think I've got to jump in. I mean, I think it's a couple of things to me. Firstly, I was exactly the same. I thought get the first 6 or 7 games out of the way, and then that's when you start to see, well, okay, this is where we really are. But to me, it does seem the Championship has moved on a hell of a lot since we last played there. But surely the club would have known that. They would have been scouting. They would have known what the teams were. Pretty much every fan I spoke to at the beginning of the season said, we got enough to stay up. Easy, no problem at all, won't be an issue. But it does seem to me that the signings have been not in the now. They've just been looking at the future. But I think the question is, I think our hopes of surviving are very, very thin. They rely on players returning to top form, obviously getting Shaughnessy back, getting the defence sorted, and I guess where's Kamara is probably a good question. Certainly getting Yengi and Bishop back, but you've got to say on paper it is looking really precarious. And if you're a betting man, there's no way you put money on us getting out of this. It's technically possible. I mean, Mousinho surprised a lot of people before. They must have known kind of the players they were buying. So I think there's a small glimmer of hope, but it's very, very small. But he seems to be very good at that, doesn't he? He totally surprised everybody. He got absolutely lambasted last season for his appointment, and stuck two fingers up at everybody. But yeah, I think if you're a betting man, I just can't. I can't see where the spark is going to come from players unless we suddenly go, oh, hang on, we are in the Championship and we do need to raise the game by 10, 15, 20%. But can you really see that? I mean, I don't think you're going to get 15 million in the January transfer window on Mendes and the other two players you got from Spurs that soars through and turned it around. But it's possible.
I think that's a completely different level, Reece.
Yeah, of
really
course it is. Of course it is. But my point is, it can happen, but chances are pretty slim, aren't they?
Yeah, I was going to say it. So Reece sort of touched on recruitment there. At the end of last season, we were being told we've already started working on last season. We already started working on next season's recruitment halfway through this season. We've got targets identified. We've got lots of irons in the fire. We want to get our business done early. We don't want to be like it was the season where we were flying out to training camp with half a dozen players. That was the messaging we were getting. And then, if you remember, at the beginning of this over the summer, there was no movement. There's there's going to be a couple coming in this week, hopefully, and the movement was incredibly slow. Not what they were asked, what they were saying, and for me, that's played itself out in the players that we have now. I'm not going to throw the players under the bus because the players are what the players are, but to say to us, yeah, well, we haven't lost out on transfer targets. We absolutely have lost out on transfer targets. And it's got to be for one of three reasons. It's either the budget's there, the recruitment team's got all the money they want to spend, but they're making mistakes, or it's they're not being given any money for wages, for transfer fees or wages, and so they're having to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Or the money's there for buying the players, but we ain't going to pay the salaries. So either way, it has to be one. It has to be one of those. It has to be one of those three things. I doubt very much the money's there to go and spend what you want. So it's one of the other two. And I don't know which is the more worrying. Either that we're just going, no, the money's not. That we're not spending any money. You've got to go out and pick up people from the Danish second division to lead the line. Or we're getting as far as talking to the clubs and agreeing fees with them, but we're just not prepared to pay the players the salary that the league requires.
We all know the answer.
I've
known the answer since the day that since the day the Eisners joined the club. As much as I love what they've done, I love what they've done to the ground. They are the tightest owners I've ever known in world football. And when it comes, not on the ground, when it comes to on the pitch, everyone else can pussyfoot around it, but we know that we all know that the whole country and the club know we weren't given the money. We weren't given the money for the players' wages. We weren't given the money to sign the players, and we won't be given the money in January enough either. It's just the unfortunate situation where we are, and we've got to like it and lump it.
But I mean, the thing is, though, they've always said they'll do things sustainably, wouldn't they? And as Phil said, we have actually started paying fees and fairly significant fees for us. We're not Hull, and we're never going to be Hull, are we? But there's no way we would have paid 4.5 million for Kamara, but we matched the Robinson fee, didn't we? But we lost out on wages. I mean, I get what you're saying, but which owners in the last 50 years have put 40 million into the club and not in the form of loans?
Well, I mean, so the loan thing always winds me up. I mean, at the end of the day, these guys own the football club. They put money into it. If they decide to sell it for what they decide to sell it for, they're going to get the money back. The loans, you've got to give me that money back.
Yeah.
To me, it's moot. They're the directors. They take the cut. It's just a clever way of going, oh, we're not going to give you any money. We're not putting any loads. It's it's all about investment at the end of the day.
Do you think the club's worth 40 million now then?
Yes, I think it is.
If I had spare 40 million, I
think it is as a going concern, and so
it might be worth 40 million now. It's not going to be worth 40 million at this time next season when we're playing in League One.
No, that's
Good
true.
point, well made. Yeah.
But
Thank you,
all the
Jamie.
money they've put in, Jamie, as you've alluded to, is not things that will evaporate, like players' wages and transfer fees. And as Phil knows, the club has to go through an amortization process where they have to work out how players are going to, how the players' values are going to affect the budget and all the rest of it. If you put money into bricks and mortar, which is what they have done, then you can pass that on into a selling fee. The problem is your playing squad value fluctuates depending on where you are, obviously, as we've just covered. Championship, yes, a bit more. League One, quite a bit less. So it's investment in bricks and mortar that they have done consistently is because that they can recoup that. They can't recoup anything which they spend on players or on wages, because that is,
of course.
But that's the core of the club. That's why we go. That's why we pay the season ticket money to go and watch it. We don't go there to admire the murals in the Milton End. We go there to admire the talent of the players on the pitch, and that's where the disconnect, I think, is sometimes with the Eisners, is that, and it's surprising for Michael Eisner, who spent his entire career being in the entertainment business, that he doesn't see that you have to entertain the masses, and that's what that was the crux of my original question is, if we got 34 games of this dire, calamitous football to go, it's just going to be a horrible, horrible season, and people are going to get fractious and angry and start being nasty and horrible. And Fratton Park's not going to be a really nice place to go because people are going to be really horrible to each other.
This is my issue. And I don't know if any of you guys have seen, but I've been arguing on, as I do very well. I've been arguing online a lot this week. People, the Portsmouth fans, they are going to get angry and they're going to call for someone's head. They're going to call for John Mousinho's head. And in my opinion, we have seen what John can do with a happy shopper League One squad. Yeah, he didn't have the best budget in League One. He didn't have an amazing League One squad, but he still got that squad to the top of the league, and we won that league. He dragged us into it. I still don't think that we had any place winning that league with the squads we got. I mean, okay, we had some great players, and Kamara was brilliant, but I still think we were punching above our weight to win League One. And now we've come into the Championship. We haven't invested in the squad. We didn't do it in time. I've been saying this, since episode 1. To echo what Phil said as well. We didn't invest in the squad. We didn't do it soon enough. We didn't buy any quality Championship players. We've bought hopefuls. We've gambled. We've effectively gambled on our Championship existence, and now we're going to go down, and people are going to blame Johnny Mousinho. He's going to get the sack, and he will go to a club that does have money and does invest on the pitch, and he'll come back and he'll stuff our sorry asses. And it really is it's winding me up that is our future, and I'm pissed off about it. Why didn't they back him? Why didn't they give him the players?
Do we actually know? Do we definitely know he wasn't given that? This is all conjecture, isn't it? I mean, he signed $500,000 for Boat. He got Schmidt for 400,000. Blair was 300,000. So we've spent a little bit, but you're right. The proven Championship bit is, and the players is definitely, ironically, that's what Cowley did, and it failed in League One. And what do we need now? Is proven Championship players. I mean, I think for the season, you've got, I think our only hope is, are there 3 teams in the league worse than us? And I think possibly QPR, but that's where you've got to think, really, isn't it? I mean, you can't believe Oxford are going to be up there, but they might well do. But I mean, is this all part of the master? Is this within the master plan of their long-term game, which has always been sustainability, doing things slowly, putting the building blocks in place to then build teams and then build kind of success and all that kind of stuff? Is this within the, not the plan, but it's acceptable, doing like a Rotherham did and what West Brom used to do with the Premiership and the Championship of bouncing up and down a couple of times? I honestly don't know, but I think the telling thing will be when the Musherati turn, and I can't believe they won't. Fratton Park is a really, really horrible place to be when the fans turn. It's not nice at all. I just can't see a way out unless the team suddenly start stringing some wins together and start to show signs of improvement. But where's that going to come from?
I think where Mousinho's not doing himself any favours is he has made a sort of string quite bizarre decisions. You know, some of the substitutions can be a bit odd. Some of the ways we've lined up can be a bit strange. The thing that worries me, you know, we talk about inexperience again. You look at him. He's obviously an inexperienced manager. He's got one full year of being a manager under his belt, and his coaching staff. And this is not a knock on his coaching staff. You've got John Harley, who by all accounts is a very good coach, very good at working with young players, which he did at Chelsea, which is why we brought him in. You've got Zesh Raymond, who's come up through the academy, was an academy coach. So all inexperienced and used to dealing with youngsters. He doesn't have a sounding board. He doesn't have a voice of experience next to him where he can turn around and go, right, do I need to change it up? Am I doing the right thing? Or someone to say to him, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? I remember when Keegan first started out in management, he had this coach alongside him. I think his name was Derek Fazackley. Not a big name, not a fancy media type or anything. But what he was he's a very experienced man, so he could turn around and he could advise Keegan on what to do. And I think you look at Mousinho, he doesn't have that around him. I think if I was going to do something, I think what could be a good move, but again, it might be something that as a manager you might see it as undermining you, is bringing in some experience in the backroom staff to help to actually help. I know some young managers don't react well to that. I know Andy Orford, the board offered to bring in an experienced coach, and he wouldn't accept it, and that ultimately was his undoing. So I don't know.
Harry
if we don't have the money to bring in players,
Harry and Jim back then, yeah. Dig him up.
Harry and John.
Well, I mean, as I said earlier, I think my worry is that we've got such a lot of the season to go, and as you said, Reese, when Fratton Park turns, it turns, and it's just not a very nice place to be for 90 minutes or 100 minutes. And so I suppose my hope is that there could, I mean, we all hope we stay up. You know, there's no question that we all hope we stay up, and we'll still go to Fratton Park and whatever away games we can get to, and cheer the team on. But I suppose my only hope is that there could be some kind of galvanising resignation that we are where we are, and the club is not going to change its management. So therefore, we just need to suck it up, and hopefully we can see a few wins as we go along, and a few decent performances, and a few players excel, and just give us some crumbs of comfort to get us through the season. Because you know that's my worry, and I like your idea, Phil, about some experienced backroom staff going in as an advisory. I think who had Steve Coppell brought in for a few months.
That was a disaster. That was that was supposed to come with Richie Barker. That's why they went with Richie Barker, because Steve Coppell had basically came into the job interview with him and said, and they was going, right, we've got Steve Coppell here. Here's the experience. Here's the young coach, which they went for. And then Steve Coppell spent most of his time in Thailand, so that didn't really work.
Well, I use that as an
and
example.
Richie Barker got the boot.
Well, okay, that's not a good example, but it's an example of how that might work. So
yes,
I don't know. It's just so frustrating at the moment. I agree with you, Phil. What I don't understand about some of Mousinho's post-match comments is he keeps saying, "I've told the players to do this," and they don't do it. Now, I thought any manager in any walk of life, if you go around saying your staff are not listening to you, your days are numbered, surely. You know, surely you can't keep in public saying, well, I told them to do this and they went off and did something differently, because your bosses are going to go, why are the players not listening to him? Why are the players not doing what he's asking them to do? And, you know, you're hoisting yourself up on that gallows just for them to go, right, okay, we'll kick the stool away if you want it. So it's just really frustrating. I don't think his organisation of the games, and this is where we want a more solid formation, is doing the players any favour. clean sheets. That's all we need. Clean sheets. That's all we want. If we draw Hull and Plymouth 0-0 away, that at least gives us something to hang on to. It may not be a good watch, but at least it gives us 2 points and a couple of clean sheets to give us some confidence from, and then we can try and build up and maybe try and nick a few games 1-0 or something. But at the moment, we're shipping 2 or 3 goals a game, and that has to stop one way or another. That has to stop. And if we don't have the personnel individually to do it, then it has to be done collectively through the team, and that comes from organisation, from the management, from me. And perhaps that's the inexperience, Phil, that you highlight, that Mousinho's either too stubborn or hasn't got a plan B or a plan C to try and move to. I mean, he has played 3-5-2 in different games, in different situations. I don't understand why he doesn't try and adopt that at home to give us a bit, a solid 5 in the middle that would allow us to stop this stuff coming straight down the middle all the time. It's just
maybe he has told them to play that, and they're just going out and
ignoring
playing the other formation. They can't hear it. Maybe we couldn't afford players with ears.
That's a possibility. Yeah, he needs a sign language coach then.
I say last season we played Peterborough away and we pretty much did that, didn't we? We sucked it all up for 70, 80 minutes. Yengi came on and bang,
nicked the winner.
Goal. And I think they say it on match day, go back to the basics, make yourself difficult to beat, get some kind of confidence back in the team, and go, especially away from home. I mean, maybe at Fratton Park, but away from home, gee, crikey, just you've got the perfect excuse just to be boring, part of the bus, and just make yourself difficult to beat. And Yengi could make something out of a breakaway easy, no problem at all. So, not no problem at all, but he is the type of player who can do that. So.
I thought Yengi was awful on Friday night. For a man with so much, who's such an athlete, such an athletic man, and by let's go, a sort of a strong physical man. He didn't win anything in the air. He looks good when he's trying to do little tricks and stuff, but I'm not saying I've lost faith in him, but I was very disappointed. But on the flip side, I do want to be a bit positive about someone. Terry Devlin.
Yes.
No, there was a player who gave a shit in that game. Because I saw Ogilvie getting caught out of position and then standing and watching while his man went past him and thought, oh God, I've lost him. You've got Terry Devlin, who started 6 games in League One last season, 20-year-old. He's not a right back. When he got caught out of position, you could absolutely see he was bombing back to make sure that he recovered. I thought he was brilliant. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And if you're not going to get through with quality, you need players like that. I'd rather be in the trenches with him than be in the trenches with Yengi, for example.
Yeah, he would definitely run through brick walls for the team, and at the very least, that's what anybody at Fratton Park wants, is players to actually, as you say, Phil, give a shit, because it hasn't seemed like some of the players have for some time, or seem to be confused with early onset dementia or something. It's just I don't get it. There's a collective disconnectedness. Which is a bit much for me to say at 9:10 at night, but it just seems there just seems to be so much going wrong, and no one has any answers at the moment, and that's where my worry is for the next 34 games, is that we're just going to have to keep smacking our faces against the wall in watching Pompey, and just take the hurts and take the bruises, I think. So we've done nearly an hour. We've covered a lot of stuff really well, I think, this evening. I'm going to the PST thing next week, which I hope to do some recording on. I'll see you there, Phil, even though you're going to be having your trainers on because you're going to run off and play badminton.
I think it's going to be quite a quiet evening, to be honest. I don't think there's going to be much going on. I think it'll be just a nice. There'll be a few, handshakes and photographs, and everyone will traipse off happy.
Yeah, that on the back.
Yeah. There may be a few brickbats thrown, but we'll see. I'm hoping to record a few people on the night, so hopefully we'll get another pod out for that. So, thank you again, gentlemen. I won't ask for your predictions for Hull and Plymouth, because I mean, I just want us not to concede a goal in a game again. That'd be nice, and then see what we can do. And bearing in mind what Plymouth did at the weekend, let's not try and not go 3-0 up with half an hour to go, because they can clearly come back into a game where
maybe
we
that's
can't.
the answer. Maybe that's the answer. Don't score.
Don't score.
Don't poke them, because we might make them angry.
Exactly.
Don't score, and then
nick one in the 93rd minute. Yeah, that's it. Thanks again, guys. It's been brilliant chatting to you. I know it's a tough time for Pompey at the moment and for all us fans, but we've been here before, and we will be here again. But it doesn't make it any easier watching not very confident together players trying to run around win 3 points. So we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. We'll cover the 2 games that come up, which is Hull and Plymouth, and play up Pompey. And let's hope we get a couple of points. That'd be nice. Thank you, guys. Cheers. See you again.
Cheerio.
Much love.